Daniel never believed in the afterlife until the day he died. One moment, he was rushing through life, consumed by success and wealth. The next, he was outside his body, watching paramedics fight to revive him. What he saw beyond death changed everything. Jesus revealed terrifying truths about world power, the deception of money, and an impending global shift. Sent back with an urgent message, Daniel now warns, time is running out, and only faith will endure. Here is his testimony. My name is Daniel, and before everything changed, I was just like everyone else, caught in the endless cycle of life, work, and the pursuit of success. I was a man of logic, a firm believer in what I could see, measure, and control. The idea of an afterlife, spiritual warfare, or divine intervention was something I never took seriously. Religion, to me, was a tradition, a set of rituals people followed to find comfort in things they didn't understand. I respected it but never saw the need for it in my own life. I worked in finance, managing investment portfolios and advising clients on how to maximize their wealth. Numbers made sense to me, cold, predictable, and controllable. Money was power, and power shaped the world. Politics, economies, and global markets dictated the future, not unseen forces or divine plans. I prided myself on my ability to stay ahead, to anticipate market shifts and capitalize on them before anyone else. My life revolved around success, financial security, and the relentless chase for the next big opportunity. My days were structured, packed with meetings, deadlines, and high-stakes decisions. Mornings began with a quick glance at global financial reports, checking stock trends, and skimming through the latest political developments. I saw world leaders not as mere politicians but as players in an intricate game of power. Everything had a strategy, a motive, a financial angle. Faith, to me, was a weakness. A crutch for those who couldn't navigate the complexities of the real world. I had grown up in a religious home, but as I got older, I dismissed the idea of a higher power influencing events. If something couldn't be proven, it didn't exist. Life was about making the right choices, working hard, and securing your place in the world. On the day everything changed, I was running late for a meeting. It was early morning, and the city was just waking up. The golden light of dawn reflected off glass buildings as I rushed through traffic. My mind focused on an upcoming deal that could shift my career to the next level. I barely paid attention to the road, checking my phone between red lights, scanning emails, and tracking market updates. The financial world never slept, and neither did my ambitions. I had no idea that within moments, none of it would matter. I remember the stoplight turning green. I pressed the gas, thinking about my next move, my next strategy. Then, everything shifted. A sudden impact, the deafening sound of metal crushing, and the violent force of my car being struck from the side. Time slowed. My vision blurred. And then nothing. I expected panic, pain, or fear. Instead, I felt weightless, detached. The chaos around me faded, and I became aware of something impossible. I was still there, but not in my body. I was watching everything unfold as if I were merely an observer. At that moment, my carefully constructed reality shattered. Everything I had believed about life, power, and control was about to be rewritten in ways I could have never imagined. The impact came faster than I could process. One moment, I was gripping the steering wheel, my mind locked on a million distractions, and the next, everything exploded into chaos. A deafening crash, the screech of metal twisting, the violent force slamming me sideways. Glass shattered. The world spun. My body jerked violently as my car crumpled under the weight of a massive truck barreling into the driver's side. Then, silence. Not the eerie stillness after an accident, not the muffled ringing that lingers in the ears. This was something else. A silence that swallowed sound, that pressed in on every side. I expected pain. I expected fear. But there was neither. I opened my eyes, or at least I thought I did. What I saw didn't make sense. I was still in my car, but I wasn't. My body lay slumped against the cracked window, blood trickling down my forehead. My chest was unnaturally still. I wasn't breathing, but I was there, somehow outside of it all, hovering just above, watching it unfold like a scene from a movie. Panic should have hit me. I should have been screaming, struggling to make sense of what was happening. Instead, there was an eerie calmness, as if I had stepped outside of time itself. The world around me seemed muted, slowed. The frantic movements of the people rushing toward the wreck felt unreal, like I was watching them through a thick pane of glass. I tried to move, to reach for my body, but there was nothing to reach with. I had no weight, no hands, no form, only awareness. Then I felt it, a pull. At first, it was subtle, like an unseen tide drawing me away from the wreckage. Then it grew stronger. My surroundings began to shift, the accident scene fading as something else took its place. The city street, the wrecked car, the flashing lights of approaching ambulances, all of it dissolved into something vast and endless. Darkness. But it wasn't empty. It wasn't cold or frightening. It was alive. A presence surrounded me, vast and infinite, stretching beyond anything my mind could comprehend. I wasn't falling, wasn't floating. I simply was, suspended in a void that pulsed with an unspoken energy. Then, a sound, soft at first, like distant chimes carried on a breeze. The darkness shifted, moving as if it had substance. And then, light. It started as a faint glow in the distance, barely more than a flicker. But it grew, expanding, radiating warmth that reached into the deepest parts of me. It wasn't just brightness, it was presence. A force so powerful, so alive, that every thought, every doubt, every fear I had ever carried seemed to melt away in its wake. I felt something beside me. Movement. I turned, or rather, my awareness shifted toward it. Figures emerged from the darkness, beings of pure light. They had no distinct features, yet I knew they were watching me, waiting. They didn't speak, not in words, but their presence filled me with understanding. They had been here all along. Guides. Messengers. They moved with effortless grace, surrounding me, their light intertwining with the growing brilliance ahead. And I understood, without needing to be told, I was not going back. I was being taken somewhere beyond the limits of human understanding, beyond the life I had known. The pull intensified, drawing me toward the radiance, the presence that awaited me just beyond sight. I had spent my life believing in logic, in the tangible, in what could be measured and controlled. But in that moment, none of it mattered. I was standing on the edge of something greater than I had ever imagined. And I wasn't alone. The light grew stronger, enveloping everything, yet it didn't blind me. Instead, it filled me with a warmth unlike anything I had ever known. It wasn't just light, it was alive. It carried a presence so overwhelming, so boundless, that I felt as if my very being was dissolving into it. And then, I saw him. At first, he was just a figure emerging from the brilliance, a form too radiant to fully comprehend. But as he came closer, I didn't need to see his face to know who he was. Jesus. His presence was unlike anything I could have imagined. It wasn't just love, it was the very essence of love, powerful and pure, consuming yet gentle. It reached into every part of me, filling the spaces I never realized were empty. His gaze, though I couldn't describe his eyes, held eternity within them. He saw everything, every part of me, and yet there was no judgment, only deep, infinite understanding. I had spent my life believing in power, in money, in logic. But standing before Jesus, I knew instantly that I had been blind. Nothing I had chased, nothing I had built my life upon, held any true weight in this place. The stock markets, political strategies, financial empires, they all seemed absurdly small in the face of his reality. I wanted to speak, to ask 1,000 questions, but I didn't need to. He already knew. Without words, without movement, he revealed something before me. The light around us shimmered, and suddenly, I was no longer standing in his presence. I was watching my life unfold before me. The life review. It wasn't just memories. It was as if I was reliving every moment, every choice, every thought I had ever had. And not only from my perspective, but from the perspective of those I had affected. I saw myself as a child, full of innocence and wonder, before the world had shaped me into what I had become. I saw the moments I had been kind, the times I had offered a word of encouragement to someone who needed it, the simple acts of love that had rippled further than I ever realized. But then, I saw the other side. The times I had ignored someone's pain because I was too focused on my own ambitions. The people I had hurt, not through malice, but through neglect, through selfishness, through choosing money and power over relationships. I saw the way my words had cut others, even when I thought they were harmless. I felt their pain as if it were my own. And then I saw what I had worshipped. I had never thought of myself as someone who worshipped anything, but now I saw the truth. My God had been money. My faith had been in wealth, in control, in the illusion that power could secure my future. And yet, here, in this place beyond time, none of it meant anything. I felt sorrow, deep and raw, not because I was being condemned, but because I finally understood. I had wasted so much time chasing illusions, blind to what truly mattered. I turned back to Jesus. I expected disappointment, perhaps even rebuke, but what I saw in his eyes was something far greater than forgiveness. Love, mercy, a call to awaken. "You have been deceived," his voice resonated within me, not spoken aloud but felt in the depths of my soul. "And you are not the only one." He reached out, and suddenly, the life review faded. The space around us shifted, and I knew he was about to show me something even greater. Something that would change everything I thought I knew about the world. The air around us shifted, and suddenly, I was no longer standing before Jesus in the radiant light. Instead, I was above the earth, looking down at it from a perspective that no human being was ever meant to see. The planet spun beneath me, breathtaking and vast, but something was different. I could see beyond the physical world. It was as if a veil had been lifted, exposing the invisible forces at play behind nations, leaders, and history itself. I watched as cities pulsed with energy, some glowing with light, others enshrouded in darkness. But this was not simply a division of good and evil. It was something far more complex. There was a war, an unseen battle raging beneath the surface of human events. Jesus stood beside me, his presence unwavering, and with a single thought, he made me understand. The world was not governed by politics, money, or even military power. Those things were merely tools. The real battle was being waged in the spiritual realm, where unseen forces, some divine, others utterly malevolent, maneuvered events, shaping the course of history. I turned my gaze toward the centers of power: Washington, London, Beijing, Moscow. Around each of them swirled forces beyond human perception. Some leaders were surrounded by darkness, tendrils of shadow whispering into their ears, guiding their decisions. Others stood in the midst of conflict, pawns in a battle they did not even understand. And then, I saw him, Donald Trump. His presence was different. Around him, forces of both light and darkness clashed violently, locked in a struggle more intense than anything I had seen elsewhere. I watched as these unseen energies moved through the halls of government, through the media, through the hearts and minds of millions of people. The world saw Trump as a politician, a businessman, a controversial figure. But in the spiritual realm, his presence was a focal point of battle. I turned to Jesus, the question already burning in my mind. Is he good? Is he evil? Jesus' response was not what I expected. "Power in this world is never as it seems," he said, his voice resonating deep within my being. "There are those who serve darkness, and there are those who are used, despite their flaws, for a greater plan." He showed me how the world had been divided over Trump. I saw the fiery debates, the passionate support, the blind hatred. But what struck me most was how both sides were deceived. Neither his supporters nor his enemies saw the full picture. Those who praised him believed he was a savior, a chosen warrior against evil. Those who despised him saw him as the embodiment of corruption. But the truth was far beyond their understanding. "The world is at war," Jesus continued, "and the battle is not of men, but of the unseen. Trump is not the cause. He is a symbol, a catalyst. His presence has revealed what was hidden, forcing both darkness and light to expose themselves." I looked again, and I saw how world leaders were being moved like chess pieces. Some willingly served dark forces, making deals in secret, manipulating economies, and orchestrating conflicts for their own gain. Others resisted, unknowingly playing into the hands of forces beyond their comprehension. Trump was at a crossroads, a man whose decisions rippled through time, affecting the course of history in ways neither his allies nor his enemies could fully grasp. He was neither wholly righteous nor wholly corrupt, but his presence forced the hidden battle into the open, and the deception ran deep. I saw the media, twisting truth into illusion, fueling division, ensuring that people fought over what they were told to see, rather than what was truly happening. Every headline, every controversy, every scandal, distractions from the real war. The deception was so intricate, so all-encompassing, that the vast majority of humanity was blind to it. "Many do not see," Jesus said, "because they do not want to. They fight over men, over politics, over nations, while the true forces shaping their world remain hidden." I saw protests, riots, elections, people pouring their passion into causes they believed were their own, never realizing they were pawns in a much greater scheme. Trump is a test, Jesus said, not just for the world, but for the hearts of men. Will they seek truth beyond their emotions? Or will they be consumed by the illusion? The vision before me shifted. I saw storms gathering over nations, the battle intensifying, the divide between people growing wider. And I understood this was only the beginning. Then Jesus turned his gaze toward me. Now you see, he said, but there is more to be revealed. And with that, the vision shifted once more. The vision shifted again, and I found myself looking down at the world from an even greater height. Cities stretched before me, glowing with an eerie energy, pulsing in rhythm like a vast, interconnected machine. Skyscrapers, banks, stock exchanges, all of them humming with a force I had never seen before. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. But then, Jesus spoke. This is the true nature of wealth, he said. Not just paper, not just numbers in a system. It is power, an illusion that enslaves. As he spoke, I saw it. Money was more than currency. It was a force, an energy that shaped human behavior. It moved through people like a current, dictating their desires, their fears, their decisions. The entire world was built upon it, bound to it like a chain. And at the center of it all was the US dollar. It stood like a pillar holding up the entire global economy, an empire built on trust that paper had value, trust that numbers in a bank account meant security. But it was a lie. I watched as the vision zoomed in, revealing the hidden hands behind the financial system. Shadowy figures moved through the corridors of power, men and women who controlled entire economies, not by laws or governments, but through manipulation. They were not just human. Behind them lurked dark entities, whispering into their ears, guiding their decisions, and the world was blind to it. Jesus extended his hand, and suddenly, I saw the future. The collapse did not happen gradually. It was sudden, brutal, and irreversible. One moment, people lived in false security, trusting in their banks, their investments, their digital wealth. And then, it was gone. The stock markets crashed overnight. Banks froze, refusing withdrawals. Governments scrambled, but the system they had built was designed to fail. People panicked. The rich became as helpless as the poor. I saw men in suits, once powerful and untouchable, fall to their knees, their fortunes erased in an instant. Ordinary families, who had spent years saving, suddenly had nothing. The system they had put their faith in vanished like smoke. But that was just the beginning. As chaos spread, a new system rose in its place. I saw world leaders gather behind closed doors, their faces grim but determined. They promised the people a solution, a new financial order, one that could never collapse, never be corrupted. But there was a cost. Jesus turned to me, his expression filled with sorrow. They will be deceived, he said, because they do not see what lies beneath. And then, I saw it, the mark. It wasn't just a new currency. It was control. A system where every transaction was monitored, every individual tracked. To participate, one had to submit, not just financially, but spiritually. The people were desperate. They had lost everything. And so, they embraced it. I watched as millions lined up, eager to accept the new system, unaware of what it truly meant. Those who refused were shut out, unable to buy, unable to sell. They became outcasts in their own world. And then, I saw the faithful. Those who had never placed their trust in wealth, who had prepared, not with money, but with faith. They were untouched by the collapse. While the world crumbled around them, they stood firm. Jesus turned to me once more. Tell them, he said, tell them to prepare, not with gold, but with faith, because the time is near. And with that, the vision faded. The vision began to fade, but the weight of what I had seen pressed down on me like an unbearable truth. The collapse of the financial system, the rise of a new order, the deception that would consume the world. It was no longer just a possibility. It was inevitable. I turned to Jesus, desperation swelling inside me. What can I do? I asked. How do I stop this? His gaze was steady, filled with sorrow and love. You cannot stop it, he said, but you can warn them. I felt my heart sink. I wanted to do more. I wanted to change what was coming, to undo the destruction I had seen. But deep in my spirit, I knew he was right. The world had already chosen its path. Jesus stepped closer, and in that moment, I felt the full weight of his presence. Tell them to prepare, he said. Not with wealth, not with power, but with faith. Images flashed before me. People stockpiling money, buying gold, seeking shelter in physical things. But none of it would save them. The only ones who would stand firm were those who had built their foundation on God, not the false security of this world. I shook my head. They won't believe me. Jesus' expression didn't change. Some will, he said. And those are the ones I am sending you back for. I felt a sharp pull, a force stronger than anything I had experienced so far. I turned back to Jesus, panic rising in my chest. No, wait. I don't want to leave. I need to understand more. Please, don't send me back yet. But it was too late. The light around him grew impossibly bright, swallowing everything. The realm I had been in, so infinite, so real, began to blur. A force yanked me backward at an impossible speed, tearing me away from the presence of Jesus, from the truth I had just discovered. Then pain. Agonizing, searing pain shot through my body as I gasped for air. My chest ached, my lungs burned, my head pounded. I felt something pressing against my face, voices shouting, machines beeping. I was back. I opened my eyes to see the harsh fluorescent lights of a hospital room. A doctor stood over me, eyes wide with shock. Nurses scrambled around, checking monitors, adjusting tubes. I heard someone say, "We lost him for over 6 minutes." I had died. And yet, here I was. The days that followed were a blur of pain and recovery. But none of it mattered. My body might have been weak, but my soul was on fire. I had to tell people what I had seen. At first, I tried with my family. I told them about the accident, about leaving my body, about Jesus. I explained the truth about money, the hidden forces ruling the world, the deception that was coming. They listened. They nodded. But in their eyes, I saw hesitation, doubt. It was probably just a near-death hallucination, my brother said. You were in shock, my mother whispered. Maybe your mind was just trying to process everything. No, I knew what I had seen. I knew it was real. I tried telling my friends, my colleagues, even my pastor. The reactions were always the same: skepticism, discomfort, polite dismissal. Some told me it was fascinating, but probably just my brain misfiring in trauma. Others outright mocked me, saying I had fallen into conspiracy theories or religious fanaticism. But what struck me the most was how many didn't want to hear it at all. People were too comfortable in their illusions. The idea that money wasn't real power, that world leaders were just pieces on a larger chessboard, that the comforts they relied on, banks, governments, technology, were all part of a deception. It was too much for them. I saw it in their faces, the fear, the refusal to accept that everything they had built their lives upon could be crumbling beneath them. At first, the rejection crushed me. I had seen Jesus. I had felt his presence, his love, his urgency. How could people ignore that? How could they not understand what was coming? Then, I remembered his words. Not everyone will listen, but some will. I wasn't sent back to convince the world. I was sent back for those who were already searching, those who had felt deep in their spirit that something wasn't right but couldn't put it into words. And so, I began speaking to them. I started small, sharing my story online, talking to people who were open, writing down everything I had seen. And slowly, they started finding me. People who had always sensed something was off in the world. People who had questioned the direction of global events. People who had already begun to pull away from the material illusions. I realized then that this was my mission. Not to argue, not to fight to be believed, but to plant seeds. To wake up those who were ready. If you're reading this, I believe you're one of those people. Maybe you felt it, that nagging sense that something is shifting, that the world around you is not as it seems. Maybe you've started to question the system, to wonder why everything feels so fragile, so orchestrated. That's not paranoia. That's your spirit recognizing the truth. I was sent back to tell you that time is running out. The collapse is coming, not just financial, but spiritual. The deception will grow stronger, and many will fall into it. They will place their trust in false security, money, government, technology. They will be told that the world can be fixed if they just submit. But you have a choice. Jesus told me to tell you, prepare. Not with gold, not with power, not by clinging to the old systems that will soon fail. Prepare spiritually. Strengthen your faith. Build a foundation that no economic collapse or government decree can shake. Because soon, when everything else crumbles, only those who stand on truth will remain standing. I don't know how much time we have. I don't know the exact day or hour. But I do know this: Jesus is coming. And when the world finally realizes the truth, for many, it will be too late. Wake up now. Seek him now. Because the time is near.